Morning, everyone. So, um, there was a budget announcement yesterday where Jeremy Hunt tried to give the impression it was a tax cutting budget to the point where the only real cut to household expenses there's going to be is a cut to national insurance, which is supposed to be working out some several £100 a year. I was going to say a month then, yeah, have a laugh. A year, but what they don't say is it's going to be completely wiped out by all the other tax rises, including income tax rises. As well as we've had the news this morning that the energy price is going to go up again in January. That's going to be for a typical household. It's 5% increase basically, but for a typical household, something like £94 a year. Um, so, and the thing is, it's completely mental because it's not going to work for the election. They're still going to lose the election. But again, it's like, why are they doing it? Are they trying to shore up some seats? Maybe. But realistically, what they're doing is they're setting traps for Labour because Labour are probably not going to put national insurance back up because that is a tax that hits ordinary people. So they'd already had their plans worked out. They're now going to have to work them out that takes account of that and the fact that they're going to have to work out what they do to make up that shortfall. Because I think it works out about £9 billion, which is not, you can't just like piss that away. But Steve Kirk at £10 super chat early on, thank you. It says, have to commend Cleverly for speaking the truth for once. After over a decade of Tory rule, the whole country is an asshole. I have to be careful at the beginning parts of the video. Yeah, well, I mean, Gray and I were just talking about this. I mean, it's not a resigning issue. I would say, who here has not ever called any place something disparaging? We've all done it. You just don't do it as a member of the government when you're on duty as a senior member of the government in front of cameras and microphones. And also, it's not so much what he said about a place. It's the fact that he's dismissing what was a serious issue, 34% of children in poverty in that constituency. That's what was it's the callousness of it. It should be a source of shame. If I were a senior member of a government that had been in power for the best part of 14 years, and I was told that any part of the country had a 34% child poverty rate, I would not be making glib comments. I would be ashamed. Absolutely ashamed. That's for me where Cleverly where his behavior was disgraceful, not describing a particular place in less than flattering terms. Like I do that with lots of places. There's lots of places I don't like. Every time I go to London, I moan about it. You know, I mean, pissing toilets. But anyway, there we go. Right, the other thing I was going to mention. So going back to this budget thing and what Labour need to do about it, because there are two aspects to it. It is intended to, first of all, let's be honest. There are a lot of people who are fooled by this standard behaviour. Right, cut taxes, win an election, put them straight back up again. You know, the most famous time in my lifetime when this happened was in 1992. Norman Lamont was the Chancellor, right? 1992. They just got rid of Margaret Thatcher. They got John Major in. They were looking like losing the election. Norman Lamont cut taxes, right? Then the Tories won the election. And they're like, oh no, what have we done? We've buggered up the economy for Labour. What do we do now? So then what he did, he put the taxes right back up again. And then they carried on for 5 more years. But it's what they always do. You know, like this chart behind me is what it represents. It's from the Institute for Fiscal Studies, and it represents the rate of tax. Now, this isn't taxes in terms of pounds. The rate of tax as a proportion of national income, how it changes compared to the previous parliament. So what you can see is in this parliament, taxes are going to go up but for the whole of this parliament will have gone up by over 4%. This has not happened. This chart goes right back to 1951. So it goes right back to when Queen Elizabeth ascended the throne. And she was our longest serving monarch, right? Covers that entire period. In no period in modern history, like just after the war, the tax burden went up a lot, right? It's getting back up to that point. I mean, you can look here. In the previous parliament, it went down a little bit, but that only lasted 2.5 years. But look what happened here. Look. So during most of Thatcher and Major's years, taxes went down, although it went up a lot when Thatcher came in. God, that was the thing again. Considered, we're a tax cutting party. That's what we do. We cut taxes. Margaret Thatcher came to power and immediately whacked taxes up by what was again, for modern times, a record amount. But then they came down. But remember, when it came down the following parliament, that is compared with the previous parliament where she whacked it up. So always be a bit wary of things like this. If you whack taxes up and then you bring them down a little bit, taxes can still overall be higher. And if I had a chart, I have done a chart before. I'm going to do a video at some point before the election that shows how the rate of tax, it increased. In fact, I've done a video in the past where I said this. Under Margaret Thatcher, the rate of tax increased. So although it looks like they cut taxes over a 3-parliament thing here, it was only really slightly offsetting the massive tax hike they introduced after they took over. Then Labour came in and they increased taxes, but they also increased standard of living. So people weren't feeling worse off. They were feeling better off. They were paying a higher rate of tax technically, but they were also making more money. And also think about something else. This is the overall tax burden. So it doesn't necessarily mean that ordinary people are paying higher taxes when it's above. Then Labour increased tax again. Then look at this. So if any Tory tries to say to you, I'm going to get back to that super chat in 1 moment, sorry. If any Tory tries to say to you, why is this tax rate? Oh, it's because of COVID. It's because of COVID. Because that's what some are doing. It's like, no, it's not. Because look what happened in Labour's last parliament. Banking crisis. Huge global crisis, right? Required a lot of borrowing. And we did. There was a lot of borrowing in that period. And yet, the tax burden went down. Now, I don't know whether it should have done or not. What I am saying is, when there was a major global crisis and Labour were in charge, the tax burden went down. Then Tories came in, went up. Pure Tories, David Cameron's lot, went up again. Again, that was only a couple of years, but it still went up. They increased taxes because they did what they always do. Oh, we're going to cut taxes. Oh, sorry, taxes are going up. And then before the next election, we're going to cut taxes now, because that's what they said in 2015. Oh, the good times, they're rolling now. We had to deal with Labour's mess, but we've done it now. It's all fine. Austerity's over. We're gonna. And then straight away, 2015, they won the election. What did they do following year in the budget? Oh, sorry, we're putting taxes up again. And now they've whacked them up. Anyway, I'm going to get back. I'm ranting on. So Tinkanator, £10 super chat, thank you. It says, what hope do I have that under capitalism, any rights and concessions a Labour government can secure regularly people aren't? Weak, limited, temporary, and rescinded, within a decade. Surely PR is key. PR is key, yes. It's not a silver bullet, but it helps so much. So much. In fact, people are talking at the moment in terms of PR, just to go slightly, about Wilders doing well in the Dutch elections. And I'm going to wait for the full results. It doesn't look like he's going to be forming a government, though. And that's the people are going, oh, but if you have PR, you get what's happening in the Netherlands. What? Populists not forming a government? Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that. Because what's probably going to happen is you'll have a progressive coalition forming and they will form a government. It'll be a bit, iffy for a while. There won't be a stable government for a few months, but it will mean Vendetta's telling me to remove the chat from the screen. I have no control over the screen. As people will know, sometimes we do these and the chat's not on the screen. That's when I'm doing it. Graham, you are addressing Graham. But there we go. Right. I need to also go up because I've missed another one potentially. No, I did that one. Read my comments. I am reading the comments. I'm trying to get through to them now. Right. Rachel Reeves on GMB basically saying Labour will make no changes, even reinforcing the Tory clampdown on benefits and more non-dom claptrap that's not going to pay for everything. Yeah, but they have to do that. Judge them on what they do. Like at the moment, the reason why this is a trap for Labour is twofold. First of all, the Conservatives are desperate to Labour to paint Labour as the party of tax and spend. Oh, they'll just whack up your taxes and then spend all the money and you'll get nothing for it, right? So Labour are just basically holding. So in 2010, what the Conservatives were doing when Labour were in power last was essentially saying, we can do everything they do, only for less money. They're really wasteful. They're wasting a load of your money. They don't need to charge you all these taxes. We'll do it for less. We'll cut taxes and we'll still deliver these services. And obviously they didn't. They didn't even cut the taxes. They cut the spending, but they didn't cut the taxes. So where did all that money go? We know where that money went. So Labour have to do the same thing because it works on people. People want, except they can't say we're going to deliver the same. They need to say we're going to deliver better. So they have to be able to do that. And the other thing to bear in mind is, so let's say we have this election in May, which is, I've always thought is most likely. It's now just more and more likely. So let's say we have this election in May. So Labour are then stuck with the Tory spending plans. And it's all right saying, oh, they could have an emergency budget. Two problems with that. First of all, it actually takes a long time to work out a budget. Labour at the moment have spending plans that they can work out themselves, but they don't have access to enough information from the Treasury to really know what the state of the country's finances is. That is secret, really. So until they get control of the Treasury, they won't really know just what the country's finances are like. So it takes a very long time to draw up a budget. And the other problem with changing something is you're creating extra uncertainty for businesses. And businesses don't like uncertainty. So Labour will not realistically be able to come up with their own budget until 2025. The other trap that's in this is because the Conservatives, when they say they've cut this national insurance, and you think this is basically unfunded, like Rishi Sunak was going, oh, these unfunded, this is an unfunded tax cut. The only difference between this and Liz Truss's unfunded tax cuts is Jeremy Hunt has made it contingent on budget cuts in a couple of years' time. So basically what Jeremy Hunt has done is he said, I'm going to cut taxes now, and whoever's in government next year is going to pay for it. It's not coming out of this year's budget, even though it's going to be implemented this year. It's not even coming out of next year's budget. It's coming out of the year later's budget. So Labour are going to be stuck having to pay for this tax cut, which the Tories are using to try and bribe voters. And some people will think there's a really easy solution, but there isn't an easy solution. If you think about what would you naturally say, a lot of people will say things like, well, we obviously we're going to have to raise a tax for it. We just levy it on the wealthy. We put up something like inheritance tax or something like that. The problem with that is whenever you talk about any tax right, you could come up, and I said this in my sort of stream for members yesterday on my own channel. Let's say you came up with a special tax that was only for people who earned £1 million or more a year. If you don't earn £1 million a year, you don't pay this tax, right? Couldn't be more explicitly a tax for the rich, just a special little tax for the rich, right? If you announce that, there'll be shitloads of people who think they'll be paying that tax. And that's because what will happen, I'll tell you exactly what will happen because they do this all the time. The Tory media, they'll work out how much Labour aim to raise from that tax, that levy. They'll divide it by every household in the country. And then they will say, this new tax is going to cost every country in the household this amount of money, let's say 600 quid, right? That's what they'll do. That's what will be all over their front pages. And we know this works because people may recall in 2019, there was a question time during the election campaign where some guy in the audience who earned something like 80 odd £1,000 a year, he thought, first of all, he thought he was on a fairly standard income. He thought that was fairly basic. And he thought he was going to be due for absolutely crap loads of extra tax under Labour. And neither was true. He was on like about 3 times the national average income. And Labour's taxation plans would have meant he would have paid a few quid extra a month, literally pounds. He'd have got change from a tenner. But that's what people are like. It's like people with inheritance tax. You've got about a third of the country think they're liable for inheritance tax, and it's like 4%. Or else €10 super chat. Thank you. It says, how serious and dedicated will Labour be in clawing back all the money the Tories funneled to their friends in all these years? So in terms of actual fraud, they will be very serious because, first of all, it's easy to do. You just hire more tax collectors. And second of all, it's not, how is it in Labour's interest to let them get away with it? None of these people are useful. In fact, it helps Labour. The more they claw back, the better, because every time they claw back some of this money from fraud, they can say, this is money that the Tories allowed to be fraudulently squirreled away. And here's the thing, Labour can then say to the Tories, why did you write this money off? What answer do they give then? Oh, because it was too difficult to get it. Well, Labour will just say, well, we've got it back. There is no answer, is there? There's no answer. So Labour will be, I am convinced, absolutely going after all of this fraud money. Now, in terms of money that was just wasted, I mean, there's not a lot you can do if it was legally wasted. So, like, if you think about PPE, there's 2 types of corruption. There was the straight up fraud where the government paid people millions, well, collectively billions of pounds to order equipment that we didn't get. Either we didn't get any equipment or what we got wasn't what we ordered. That is straight up fraud, right? You claw that back. Then there's the other type. So let's say the government paid someone £100 million to get surgical masks, and they delivered those surgical masks, and it's all what was ordered, but they should have only cost £50 million, right? That's £50 million of waste, but it's legal waste. They can't really do anything about that other than at some point during the COVID inquiry, it's going to be pointed out that we paid way over the odds, even given the market at the time. Labour should scrap standing charges for energy. Yes, they should 100% do that. I don't know if they might actually not already have a plan to do that, but they should certainly do that. But energy company, I mean, what's going to happen with the energy companies, right? So the price is going up. It already didn't come down to reflect the lower cost of wholesale energy. Now they're saying, oh, it's got to go up because of the higher cost of wholesale energy. It's like, well, okay, but what? Why? Why does it have to go? Oh, it's the Middle East. Oh, but I thought we were securing our energy security by opening up all these North Sea oil fields. No. But the energy companies will be posting record profits again next year. Mark my words. Record profits. Energy companies just glorified billing companies creaming off profit. Well, in many cases, yes. Some energy companies actually do own power stations. So they do. Some of them do actually produce energy, but most of them don't. Most of them just, admittedly, the smaller ones that aren't necessarily making the most profits. But the fact that we've got any energy companies that are just basically middlemen, it is a complete nonsense. And it also makes a nonsense of it anyway, because like if you change energy supplier, no infrastructure, like if you change your internet supplier, there is some change in the infrastructure. You at least get a new router, right? There's something that tells you you're with a different company now. When you change energy supply, there's nothing changes. It's the same power lines, it's the same gas pipes, it's the same energy, it's coming from the same place, it's all come from the national grid. So, like, what is the point of having different energy companies? All different energy companies are are different customer services centres. That's all they are. There's absolutely no reason to have more than one energy company. Israel's not a major oil producer. No, indeed. But anyway, Captain Bart Roberts, £5 super chat. Thank you. Says universal credit is mostly paid as an in-work benefit. Indeed, yes, most people on it are in work. It's a massive hidden subsidy to low-pay employers. Yes, 100%. It is. It's utterly ridiculous that you can have a situation where you say that people who are working full time, even or like the best part of full time, can possibly need in work benefits like this. You know, whenever the Tories always say that, oh, we're going to make work pay, but they never do. They just add on another level of cruelty to people who can't find work or can't find enough work or can't find well paying enough work. The French ones are keeping the French bills down. I don't notice myself. I don't actually pay it. My partner sorts that out. But she is as tight as a duck's arse, so she will always be going with the one with the best rate. Labour should commit to applying the triple lock to the personal tax allowance. They can then use the making work pay trope in a way that the DM and News UK can't dismiss. They always will come up with something. I mean, there is a sense in which you don't advise the party of government, if you support them, to tie their hands too much. Because all budgets have some element of fiddle in them. There's always some element of fiddle. And Labour, you know, they should make a big song and dance about things they're not prepared to do. And certainly what they should not be prepared to do is to allow ordinary people to have their standard of living go down. The standard of living must go up for most people. Oh, I see Patrick Troughton's trending. Excellent. He is the best Doctor. Yes, the reason for the TARDIS is the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who today. And I've just seen the best Doctor is trending. Good, good. But anyway, never mind that. And taxing green energy at the same rate as fossil fuels is criminal. Yes. Again, you tax. Who was it? It was David Mitchell who made the really good point. He's doing it. He's doing it like as a comedy thing, but it's absolutely true. Taxation and tax breaks are supposed to be about what you want to like tax breaks are supposed to be what you want to encourage. So you don't pay tax on pension contributions because they want, you know, you want to be encouraged to save for your retirement. But then you give tax breaks to oil and gas companies who, two things. First of all, are without those tax breaks viable. If you're going to give a tax break to a business, it should be on the basis that, first of all, they need the tax breaks to be economically viable, for the business to be viable. And second, it's a business you want to promote, right? Because it's producing something that is of benefit to society. Well, the oil and gas companies, yes, we can't just tell them to sod off overnight, but what they're selling is literally destroying our environment. Or our use of it is destroying them. Actually, partially they are as well, but certainly our use of it is destroying the environment. And second of all, they're already commercially viable, so they don't need the tax breaks to turn a profit. You know, if we were to get rid of these tax breaks, are we going to say that they would stop? I mean, what do they do anyway? What do they actually do for us? We have a was it Shell or BP? I can't remember which it is. They built their headquarters here because the Netherlands tried to tax them a bit too much from their point of view. I mean, what do we get out of that? Oh, we've got their headquarters here. And what? What does that do for us? A few jobs? How many jobs have we lost because of Tories' economic policies? Anyway, Jane Lockwood, 9.99 super chat. Thank you. It says, how well do we get Labour to use social media, or how do we get Labour to use social media to get our message to the masses? So frustrating. It is frustrating, which is why we're trying to do it ourselves. It's just it needs a very long run up. So realistically, we're sort of trying to get into a position where we can have a significant impact for the following election. Fortunately, the next election is not looking at all tight. I don't know how many Tory MPs think that this budget is going to suddenly shift the polls by the 6 points that someone recently was saying they need to somehow win the election. But I mean, the front page of the newspapers are absolutely disgraceful. Some of them are saying, like, the Eye has got tax burden to hit record high despite 2p cut for millions. But the thing is, even of the newspapers that are going, oh, this is brilliant, tax cuts, tax cuts, tax cuts. It's like people are going to notice. Hang on, someone's disparaging Sylvester McCoy there. We'll not have that. He was not the best, but he was one of the best. But anyway, never mind that. The people are going to notice, right? Because the reason why they're bringing this national insurance cut in January is so that people will notice their pay going up in February, right? It'll go up a little bit, their take-home pay. But what happens after the new tax year starts? In your May take-home pay, you'll notice it comes down. A lot of people are going to see, not everyone, but millions of people are going to see that it comes down, which is, of course, hang on, one angry pagan, £2 super chat, so I have to mention it. He says Baker is best. He was all right. He was not best. He was the longest running. And I approved of his jelly baby policy, but, you know. But anyway, I'm losing the thread. You're distracting me with Doctor Who. It's my fault, really, though. What was I saying? I've just gone all to pot at the end. Oh, yeah. So that is, again, another reason why it has to be surely a May general election. Now, the news coming out is that the Tories still want an autumn general election, but they're giving themselves the chance for a May general election, which makes sense. But what I'm going to say is this: if they go for an autumn general election, then all of this budget performance is going to be wasted because people are going to see the cost of things going up. Look at what's going up. Cost of energy is going up from January, right? Every month that passes, a load of mortgage holders are coming off their fixed rates and are finding that they're going to have to pay loads extra, right? House prices are coming down. So that's a double hit for mortgage holders. Their house is going to become, next year, less valuable. The actual house prices are going to come down by all accounts, and they're going to be paying more for it. And inflation as well will carry on, because, like, if they're going to put up energy prices, that hits even their precious CPI inflation. You know, it's there's so many ways in which the cost of living is going to go up. Labour are going to have to deal with it. It is massively a trap for Labour. This it's a huge. It's an attempt to try. It does two things. I'll conclude by saying it does two things. First of all, it's going to try and con a load of people so that they can hopefully win a few marginals to limit the damage. Second of all, it gives Labour a major headache to make it harder for them to be able to reverse. Basically, what the Tories are doing is they're damaging the country. They're screwing over the country for electoral benefits. That is what they're doing. And Labour really need to try and get that message out there. But the difficulty is that Labour are not judged to the same standards as the Tories when it comes to the economy. And so, you know, that is why it's difficult, because it should be really easy. It should be easy, shouldn't it, for Labour to go, look, this is all bollocks for this reason. We're going to do this. We're not going to let people pay for this. They can pay for it. We're going to basically sue all the Tories. But they can't do that. If they even hint at the fact that they will either raise taxes or raise borrowing, Labour are in trouble. So at the moment, you know, for all the stick that Rachel Reeves will get, she is basically having to play the game. We expect when they win and they're in power, a slightly different change of tune. Although they will still have to be mindful of headlines. One angry peg, another £2 super chat. Thank you. It says, At least a one-off wealth tax from Labour, maybe. Unfortunately, it's quite funny. They have been a bit coy about their wording. They have sort of ruled out wealth taxes, but I think they were quite clever about the wording. So we will see. We will see. But I would certainly say there is every justification for, like, okay, final point. If we look at inheritance tax, one of the big problems with inheritance tax is, apart from the fact more people think they'll pay it than actually do, is there's a lot of people get out of it altogether. Like there's little wrinkles, there's loopholes in it for the very wealthy, you know. So maybe there's an argument. In fact, Dan Needle presented such an argument. I've seen this argument crop up a few times in economic news. There is an argument that what you could do with inheritance tax is raise the threshold so that more people think that they're getting a tax cut, even though they're not. But make sure that people at the top end are not getting out of it with loopholes. You know, reduce the number of people who get away with it. That would then allow you to maintain the total amount of revenues from inheritance tax and make people think that you're actually cutting inheritance tax. So you do have to be a bit cute about these things. I would make a good doctor. I would absolutely not. The last thing that series needs is a doctor who, every time the Daleks or Sontarans threaten him, turns around and goes bollocks. That is not what Doctor Who needs. But anyway, we shall leave it there. A little reminder, Graham's trip to Ukraine is imminent now. Details in the description below. There's a link in there. Thanks very much for coming on, everyone. Thank you for the super chats. Don't forget to click the like button and to subscribe. Last super chat, really quick at the end. Janus DM or Janus DM, £5 super chat. News ownership. Would a parliament petition work to trigger debate to change law ensuring all news media is wholly owned by UK taxpayers versus foreign? No, you could do one anyway. But I strongly I hope that Labour want to do something like that. I strongly suspect Labour are going to do something. Like, at the end of the day, why wouldn't they? The way the news media can today hail a tax cutting budget that is actually a tax rising budget is disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. It needs to be dealt with. But anyway, that is the last one. Thank you very much for coming on. Have a good day. And until next time, I shall see you later.